Most people think financial planning is about knowing the rules. Max out your 401k, pay off your debt, don't touch your retirement accounts early, give consistently, and invest for the long term. And to be clear, those are good rules. But what if the real advantage isn't just knowing the rules, but it's knowing how they actually work? Because every year we sit across from people who are doing a lot of the right things, working hard, saving diligently, trying to be responsible, and yet they're unknowingly leaving opportunities on the table. Not because they're careless or reckless, but because no one ever showed them what else was available. A 54-year-old who thinks he has to wait 5 more years to retire when he doesn't. A couple faithfully giving every year, but missing a simple strategy that could allow them to give more over time. A high-income earner maxing out their 401k, thinking they've hit the ceiling, when in reality, they've barely scratched the surface. These aren't loopholes in the sense of gaming the system. They're just parts of the system that most people never learn. And that's the difference between following financial advice and actually understanding it. So today we're going to walk through some real-life case studies and highlight financial moves that most people don't even know exist to help you steward what you've been given with even greater clarity, flexibility, and wisdom. Welcome to Plan to Prosper. We exist to honor God by helping faithful servants steward their finances wisely and build wealth that endures for generations. All right, Logan, here we are for yet another episode of Plan to Prosper.
Hopefully the episode goes better than my coffee drinking in the morning.
Yeah. Explain to the people what's going on so you don't have to awkwardly hide here.
This is the second time it's happened. We have little travel mugs at the office, and the lids don't seem to like to stay on for me. So I sit down in a car, and I go to take a sip, and the lid pops off, and it just right down my shirt.
There's the old adage, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Well, this was the second time.
So I bet this better not happen a third time. I hope your lesson has been learned.
We'll see.
All right.
I like coffee.
You seem to like spilling it on yourself, too. It's almost like you're trying to do it.
Maybe.
Yeah. What are we talking about today?
We are talking about nice little known things in the financial world that just help you kind of make your financial life more efficient.
Yeah. And we're kind of covering a kind of a wide range. Some of these case studies that we're going to look at would be more towards early stage wealth builders and some financial advice that they might not otherwise realize. I actually think it's only one of them kind of is for an early stager. If you follow like super traditional advice, you might miss an opportunity. And then some of them are for much more wealthy people. So there's kind of a wide range of case studies that we're going to look at with maybe lesser known. Maybe you've heard of some or all of these before, but figured it'd be worth talking about a few specific things that might help somebody today. If they're listening and they go, oh, I didn't know I could do that. Yeah. I will do that.
Yeah, definitely. I'd be surprised if people have heard of all of these.
Yeah. Yeah, they're a little bit more.
Some of them are a little bit, more nuanced and specific to certain situations.
Yeah, we'll do our best to explain them as clearly as we can, as we try to do every week. But we're not here to give you like tricks. It's not like I said in the cold opening, we're not like gaming the system here. It's just these are rules that exist that you have the full ability to take advantage of.
They feel like fun little tricks, though.
They do, yeah.
All legal, though.
100%, yeah. We would never do anything other than that.
Legal, almost loopholes?
Yeah. I also want to be clear, as we always say, like this is not personal financial advice, but I think this episode will actually speak to the nature of financial advice and how it really is going to be different because these rules won't make sense for everybody,
right?
Nor are they possible for everybody. Some require you to own property, we'll get to it. But essentially, we're not. I think financial advice is nuanced, and it's going to be very specific to the person we're talking to.
Because some of them might be possible for somebody, but not the most practical thing for that person to do as well.
Exactly. So this is not take these and start doing them. That's not the point of this episode. The point is just to point them out. And if you didn't know about it, it's for you to consider, hey, could this work in my life? And if you don't know if it would work in your life, talk to us. We'd be happy to actually give you our advice for you and say, yeah, that makes sense for you, or it doesn't. All right. So we've got 5 case studies, I think. So we're going to start with this first one. Here's the idea. Somebody is 54 years old. We've got a guy who hates his job. He hates working. He wants to retire yesterday. But he's 54 years old, and he knows he's not allowed to pull from his retirement accounts until he's 59 and a half. And most people don't retire until they get closer to 60, 65 because there's Medicare things and Social Security that comes in. Lots of things that come into play where you kind of the standard retirement age would be more in their closer to mid 60s. But he's 54 and he does not want to do that. He's got a substantial 401k, but he has not much in cash. He's got very little in a brokerage account. So he thinks the only way for me to do this is to start pulling from my retirement accounts and take, obviously I'm paying income tax on that, but I'm also going to pay a 10% penalty for taking it out before 59 and a half. What would your advice be to this gentleman who walks into your office and tells you all of these things? I want to retire, but I don't want to wait.
Yeah, I mean, all of that sounds, his thought process all sounds reasonable. That's the typical, don't pull from your retirement account until you're 59 and a half because you don't want to get hit with the 10% penalty. In this case, though, where he really doesn't want to keep working and he potentially has built up a retirement account with his current employer plan that is large enough to sustain him, it sounds like he probably doesn't know that he, penalty-free, can begin taking from his employer-provided retirement plan at age 55 if he retires that year.
Right. And not even, technically, if he's 54 and he is going to turn 55 in that particular calendar year, he could do it today.
Yeah. Yep.
He could quit his job and say, I'm out of here. And he could start pulling today from that 401k plan or 403b plan or 457 plan. It has to be a qualified employer-sponsored plan, so it doesn't work for any kind of individual retirement account. So any IRA, a simple IRA, or even a SEP IRA, even if your employer's kind of sponsoring that, it's not a qualified sponsored plan. So it does have to be a qualified employer-sponsored plan.
But if you turn 55 in January and it's December, wait a month.
Right. But if you turn 55 in December and it's January, you're 54 in January.
Then go for it.
You could retire in January and basically get a free year where you're like, you just turned 54 a month ago, but now it's a new calendar year.
Yeah.
And I'm out of here. Now, you have to be careful with this because you now have a longer time horizon for your retirement. So that 401k better be very well funded, and you have to run the numbers to make sure that you have enough to actually sustain a full retirement because it's now a much longer retirement than if you retired at 65.
Yeah, think about all your living expenses.
Yeah.
And kind of assume the best case scenario and that you may be going to live 40 more years.
Yeah.
Unless there's some reason that you know that you're not.
Yeah. But if let's assume all else being equal that he has amassed enough in that 401k that he's good to go, that his plan works great.
Yeah.
He is free to do it. And he could even get fired in the calendar year. Like, it's not just you have to voluntarily leave. It could be involuntary.
You're no longer.
If you separate from your employer in the calendar year, you turn 55. You can do it. You can't retire or leave your job at 53, wait a couple years, and then just leave it there and know, hey, at 55, I can start pulling from this. That's not how it works. You have to separate from your employer the calendar year you turn 55.
Right.
I didn't know this. Public safety employees get an extra 5 years on this rule.
50. Yeah,
you can do it at 50. If you're a police officer, a firefighter, EMT, or air traffic controller, you can do this by age 50. So that's kind of cool.
The other thing I would say, if you're potentially planning on trying to utilize this at some point, if you don't like your job at age 53, don't switch jobs then unless you're really sure you want to switch jobs, because it's only your most recent employer plan. Yeah, you can't, if you have a huge old 401k, you can't pull from that. Right. It has to be whatever that employer is that you're currently at. And this is kind of actually speaks to some advice that we would give, and our ability to act as fiduciaries in the lives of our clients. You cannot roll this into an IRA. You can't take your current 401k, retire or leave your job, roll that into an IRA and start drawing from the IRA. That will negate this rule. It has to stay in that 401k plan. So there's downsides to that too, because your investment funds are more limited in a 401k most likely than it would be in an IRA. You maybe have higher fees than normal. So there's definitely downsides to this. This is not a one size fits all. You should do this if you can at all. Because we would typically recommend when somebody retires rolling their 401k into their IRA that we can manage for them so that we can be more we are their investment managers, and we want to make sure that
all their investments are aligned with what they want to do, with their goals and objectives, and we can have more eyes on it. But to really implement this rule, you have to keep it in that 401k.
Right.
Which may or may not be the best thing for any individual person.
But any priors, it doesn't matter. Any prior 401ks, you can still feel free to roll those.
Yeah. And if you retire at 55 and start doing this, but then at age 57, you've gotten a little bored and you decide, you know what, I kind of want to go back and just do some part-time work. Does the rule still apply? Can you keep doing it, or do you have to stop?
You can keep pulling from the 401k in which you were 55.
Yep. You don't lose the rule if you start working again. You can keep doing it.
And it's only a relatively short 4.5 year period where you're benefiting.
Yeah. We already mentioned that you by doing this, you have to make sure that you've accounted for a longer time horizon now, a longer retirement, because you're retiring earlier than maybe you were originally planning on it. You also have to take into account healthcare costs. If you're employer sponsored, your healthcare plan, you're not yet
doesn't in retirement.
Right. Yeah. You're not yet Medicare eligible, which happens at 65. So you've got a gap here that you're going to have to pay for this yourself. And can be fairly pricey.
Yeah.
So you'll have to take that into account to make sure that you're keeping an eye on that.
So it's current living expenses plus anything else that might come up because you're retiring.
Yeah. So take all that into account. Again, we would, before making this move, certainly recommend talking to an advisor to see if this makes sense for you. But
because there also might be, if you do this, you retire at 55 and start pulling, it might also change your Social Security strategy.
Yeah, for sure. There's lots of things at play here. Roth conversions and things like how much income you're drawing in from your 401k could, lots of things that you want to consider when making a decision like this.
Yeah.
So talk to an advisor before doing it, but you may not have known that this existed, and it's a cool little rule that you might want to take advantage of if the opportunity exists for you.
Yeah.
I think questions to ask before you do it, just because you can retire, should you? Or what would make this a bad idea? Like there's lots of ways to just run the scenarios in your mind to make sure that you're checking off every box before you make the decision.
Yeah, retiring at 55 is young, so what are you going to do with the rest of your life?
Yeah.
Is a good thing to consider.
Yep. Yeah, I think a lot of people go into retirement and aren't prepared for what their life will look like, and quite frankly don't have enough of a purpose in retirement that it just feels like, wow, I've built this whole life of working and now all of a sudden I'm not doing anything. This is not what I thought it was going to be. So I think having a plan for that, hobbies, what you're going to do, how you're going to spend your time, where you're going to travel, all these things.
Yeah. I mean, I like golf, but I think if I retired at 55 and did it every day, I'd probably get a little bit sick of it.
Maybe. But it's also be higher expenses that you maybe weren't paying for in your working years because you couldn't afford, or you just weren't golfing every day. And that's expensive to do that. So, got to take all that into account.
Well, that's why you get the country club membership.
I know. That is like a dream. Like I want to be a country club person. That'd be so fun.
Just hit the golf course any day you want.
Totally. I used to work at a country club and I saw it from the inside, just like the culture there. I like it. I'm a fan.
All right, so you're building up that 401k.
Trying to get there. All right. Any other thoughts on the rule of 55?
I don't think so.
It brings to mind another. I should have included this one in there. The SEPP exemption, where you can kind of annuitize an IRA.
Oh, yeah.
But we can do another episode on that. But it's another strategy to potentially draw from your like an IRA before 59 and a half. You just have to agree to take at least 5 years of essentially equal payments. Like you kind of turn it into an annuity.
Yeah.
And you can do this before 59 and a half in an IRA as well. But that's a rare one.
Different rules, but yeah.
Yeah, it's not at all related to the rule of 55 other than doing it before 59 and a half.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Case study number 2. We've got a rental property. And we bought it at $300,000. We've been renting it out for all these years. Now it's worth $800,000. So we have a $500,000
Congratulations.
capital gain, which is great, but we haven't lived there at all. It's just been a rental property. And we're just kind of burned out from the tenants. We don't really like living this life anymore as landlords, and we would like to do something else. So I can either keep it and try to figure out management or pay a massive tax bill. I don't like either of those options, so do you have any advice on what I can do here?
Have you heard of the 1031 exchange?
I have not. Tell me more.
All right. You can sell this. It has to be not your primary home.
Right.
It has to be investment property, investment real estate property, in which you have a gain. So in this case, in the example you gave, it's a $500,000 gain. If you sell it this year and you don't do any type of 1031 exchange, you owe tax on $500,000 in capital gains. This allows you to roll those gains into a like property and defer the gains until you would potentially sell that next property.
Yeah. And so could you turn this into a vacation home? Could you buy, say, I don't want to be a landlord anymore. I want to buy a vacation home instead and 1031 exchange your rental property into a vacation home?
There are rules around it being rented out. I would need to talk to, there are attorneys that specialize in 1031 exchanges. You kind of can, but there's a certain amount of days that it has to be rented out. You have to show that you're making income off of it. My
understanding is that for the 2 years after you execute the 1031 exchange, you have to rent it out at fair market value, so you can't just be like your friends and family at a super big discount. Fair market value for at least 14 days in each of those 2 years.
Okay.
And you have to limit your personal use to the greater of 14 days or 10% of the days that you've rented it out at fair market value. So if you rented it out for 200 days, you're limited to 20 days in your you can do it, but you've got kind of the 2 year period where you really still have to treat it as pretty much a
rules
rental
around
property.
it.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're at 200 days and 20 days, that's a nice vacation anyway, in which it's your vacation home.
Yeah, right. There's also, I think for somebody that's like, I am done with being a landlord, because that's the one thing that makes it difficult is that it has to be a like-minded or a like-kind real estate. So you would be needing it to be another investment property in that sense. But there's these DSTs, Delaware Statutory Trusts, that you could basically own fractional shares in kind of like a large property, like an apartment complex or a medical office building or something, which takes your management out of it, and you're just kind of receiving the income from the rental payments that are going into that property
and any potential appreciation.
Yeah,
it does make it for at least kind of 3 years illiquid. There are fees involved. You have very little control on like your own property. You can't really change anything about a giant apartment complex, multifamily unit type thing.
Right.
But it is a good way potentially for avoiding the tax completely with estate planning, because you can go 1031 exchange into the DST, and then you have to essentially be in that DST for 2 years, and then you can essentially exchange it into something called an UPREIT, where now you gain broad diversification into real estate. The UPREIT basically acquires that DST property, and then you have to hold that for a year. But then after that 1 year, it becomes liquid for you.
Oh, okay.
So if you start pulling funds from it, at that point, you're going to have to start realizing gains. But if you never need the property, if you never need to pull funds from it, and you pass away and you bequeath it to somebody, then all of those deferred gains step up.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about that too. If you bought a property too, not even just using the DST, like you just, if you treat it like, I am making this as like a legacy move, I'm going to keep this forever, and when I pass away, my kids are going to get it. They get a step up in basis, so that all that capital gain that you've been deferring from your first property basically gets wiped away for your kids. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah. So it's a cool estate planning move for sure, to try to execute a 1031 exchange. But you need to kind of go into it with like, I'm never going to sell this, right? Because at some point the government does want those capital gains. This is just deferring them. Yeah. But if you treat it as a legacy move, you can get it to your kids without that and kind of wipe out those gains. Yeah.
Obviously the other benefit to that UPREIT is that you are now, instead of concentrated in one property, you're diversified.
Yeah. There's a couple rules to keep in mind. There's a lot of timing issues here that could make it a challenge to do this. So there's a 45-day identification window where from the sale of your property, so if you sell that rental property, you have 45 days to identify the replacement property. If you miss it after 45 days, the tax bill is due. You have to pay it. Mm-hmm. And then, so let's assume you get that 45-day, you identify the property. You then have 180 days, not 45 days is included in that. So it's still 180 days from the sale of your property to close on the new property.
Yeah.
So that includes the 45-day identification window.
Yep. Which my suspicion is that based on the DST and the UPREIT and the you basically use 721 exchange into the UPREIT. We had clients recently that thought that it was they had a 2-year period from the close. So there are different time periods and it's easy to get confused.
Totally.
You don't want to because that can blow up the whole thing.
Yeah. What if somebody's like, well, can I do this? You already mentioned this, that you can't, but explain a little bit further. If I own a home and let's just say that $300,000 home that I bought is now worth $800,000 and I want to buy a new house, why can't I 1031 exchange that? Just buying my own personal house. I'm not renting it out.
It just doesn't qualify for your primary property, primary home. You just can't do it.
Right. But there is are you on the hook then? If
it's your primary home?
Yeah, yeah.
If you as an individual, you have a $250,000 exemption. As a couple, you have a $500,000 exemption, so you wouldn't have to pay the capital gain tax on that anyway.
Right. So if you have that exact same example, $300K to $800K, and you're married and you buy a new house, you actually get that $500,000 wiped out anyways.
Right. Yeah.
You get a home exclusion there, which is pretty sweet. So
yeah.
You don't necessarily have to worry about this with a primary home unless you have a capital gain beyond that, which is possible for sure, but
right.
That would be a big capital gain for sure.
Yeah. One of the other questions that we get a lot is, do you have to reinvest all of the proceeds from the house? Kind of, yes. If you don't, you'll be on the hook for some tax. You can't defer everything if you're not. So it can kind of still work, but you pay some tax if you don't reinvest all of the proceeds into a like property. But the other thing that some people don't realize, and again, you're going to want to consult with a CPA before doing this part, but you can typically get away with maybe $800,000. You buy something for $750,000, but it needs $100,000 in renovations. That can potentially count as well.
Yep. Very good. Any other thoughts on the 1031 exchange? Anything else worth mentioning?
I don't think so. I think we got all of it.
Okay. Case study number 3. We have a couple that we're going to keep on the house theme here, and they have $100,000 left on their mortgage. They've been paying it off diligently, but they're kind of nearing the end of it, and they have a small interest rate, 2.5%. They got in at a really good time.
Refinanced in 2020.
Yeah, so they just kind of nailed it. They've got $300,000 in their taxable account, so they're looking at their balance sheet, and they're going, I've got more than enough to pay off this mortgage right now from all the money that I have in my taxable investment account. Can I just do that? I want to get rid of my debt. I'm sick of it. I just want to be done with it. And then I'll have all this extra cash flow. It'll be perfect. Should I do that? What would you say as an advisor?
Well, I think there are two different aspects. Should you and can you are two different things. You certainly can. Should you? It depends. How important is it to you that you kind of mentally that you are debt free? Mm-hmm. If that will really help you sleep at night, I would say potentially yes. Mm-hmm. Go ahead. I think the important thing in that situation is that everything you were paying towards the mortgage, you then start reinvesting.
Yeah.
But the kind of, if you look at the different variables on whether or not you should, I think you should also consider the opportunity cost of what you're doing. So if you're paying 2.5% interest on a $100,000 mortgage, you're paying $2,500 in interest a year. Our conservative plans, financial plans, assume an average interest rate of like 6% that you
Yeah.
can make in the markets. So you're potentially wiping out a $2,500 per year debt, but lose the opportunity to make on average $6,000 on
to
that
keep
investment.
that $100,000 invested.
Yeah.
Right. So there's an opportunity cost there where the math says keep it invested,
Right.
because the returns you could expect with the investment would be more than what you'd be paying in interest. But you're right, there is the emotional aspect that might be more important than the raw numbers for some people. And if that's the case, then I think I think you gave great advice. We would give you your blessing to do it. You have to take into account, if you're going to liquidate $100,000, you might have some capital gains to deal with here, some extra taxes. So keep that in mind. But let's go in with the plan that now all this cash that you freed up on a monthly basis, because you no longer have a mortgage to pay, you put that back in the taxable account and you start investing that again.
Yeah.
I think there's some liquidity issues. Like once you've paid off in the house, sure, you have your house fully paid off now and you have this asset, but it's not liquid. So the money could be better served by being liquid in a taxable account. You just continue to pay off your mortgage over time, so that if the emergency happens and you need to buy, like, you just have plenty of liquidity. Now, in this case, they have $300,000, so they still have $200,000 of liquidity, which is not nothing at all. But
yeah, especially in the case where your interest rate is 2.5%, because you could argue that, well, I can kind of open up a HELOC, but you're not going to get a 2.5% rate on a HELOC. So also, technically you have liquidity, but you're going to be paying more in interest for any liquidity that you need to pull from the house.
Yep. So it's just, you have to make those decisions the best that you possibly can. You have to ask all the right questions. What if I lose my job and I suddenly need more liquidity than I did a year ago or today? What is going to give me the most flexibility? And it might not be to pay off the mortgage. It might be to just keep it the way that you're doing it. We're not anti-debt payoff at all. We think it's really a wise thing to be out of debt. But a mortgage is productive debt in that you're building an asset in the background as you pay that off. It's not like consumer debt, like piling stuff on a big 20% credit card or anything like that. And then we think that's a good example of debt that's worth taking on for most people. And so I think it's okay to have that.
Yeah, because sometimes you kind of consider the verse, the borrower is slave to the lender. In this case, I don't think it applies really as much, because I think a good example of that is student loan debt, where if you lose your job and you can't pay the student loans, they're going to come after you for everything.
Yeah.
In this case, you have the whole house backing. So say the house is worth $400,000, you now can't pay the $100,000 debt. Well, you have that house backing you up.
Yeah. So you could sell it and have $300,000 in cash. Yeah, for sure. But I think this speaks to, again, the nuance of financial advice and how we're trying to balance the emotional side of finance with the math side of finance, and figuring out the right approach for any individual person.
Yeah, there's definitely art and science.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on that?
No, on to the next.
Case study number 4. So we're going to wind the clocks back and look at a younger couple that's just getting started on their wealth building journey. They're newly married, but they have $10,000 in debt, around 4-6% student loans, but they don't have any
That's nothing these days.
Yeah, I know. They have no emergency fund, but they have $300 a month in their cash flow that they can apply to something. And they want to know, somebody told them, you should attack that debt aggressively. Put that entire $300 towards your debt, and let's get that paid off as soon as you possibly can.
I know who told them that.
I do too. What would you say to them who coming to you for advice, saying that's what I'm planning on doing with that $300?
Yeah, I would say I love the attitude of aggressive debt payoff. We love people trying to get out of debt, because it can feel like a burden. But at the same, our encouragement would be and advice would be, at the same time that you're aggressively trying to pay off the debt, you should also be trying to create an asset on the side, so that when you do pay off the debt, you have something that can back you up, so that if you have an emergency, you don't just go right back into debt.
Right. Yeah, so because even at $300 a month with only $10,000 in debt, that's still going to take a few years to pay off. 4 or 5 years, depending on the interest rates involved. But and so you'll take 4 years to pay it off, let's say. And when you're all done with it, great, you have no debt and you have no money either.
And you need a new car.
Yeah. So that's a long time to go without that safety net.
Yeah.
So I think probably the better approach would be, let's build a small emergency fund first. Let's keep making minimum payments on the debt. And let's get our emergency fund up to, it's going to be different for everybody. We like to look at your living expenses as a kind of the basis for it. So let's start with maybe 1 month of living expenses as a starter emergency fund. And then let's go back and let's maybe do a hybrid approach where we take half that $300 and we throw that at the debt and the other half continues to build that emergency fund.
Right.
Ideally, we want a fully funded emergency fund at 3 to 6 months of your living expenses. So it's going to be a bit higher than that starter emergency fund. But we kind of want to attack these at the same time it's a little bit more of a hybrid approach. And again, the numbers might not back that up because if you've got let's say a 6% interest rate on your student loans and you've got a high yield savings account that's currently doing 3.9%, well, you actually are losing out a little bit on the interest rate arbitrage there or whatever. Right. So the math might say, yeah, put it all towards the debt, but that there's wisdom in not doing that because of what you said. And the emergencies will happen. And where is your liquidity going to come from in those situations?
Yeah, and just to be clear, this is also $300 a month extra. So you're already paying the minimum payments on the debt.
Right.
We're not saying only allocate $150 no matter what the minimum payment is. We're saying allocate the extra payments in a certain manner.
Yeah.
Keep paying the minimums.
Yeah. And if it's spread out over multiple student loans, we've talked about the debt snowball or debt avalanche method, where just take that entire 150 and apply it to just one of those, not spread it out equally. So that way you can pay off one of those and then roll that entire thing into the next one, and then roll the entire thing into the next one.
Right.
So you can kind of there's some psychology here that kind of help you. Wow, I just paid off one of those student loans. That feels good, and then you just keep doing that. Yeah. So the traditional, some financial advisors might really get aggressive with debt at the expense of an emergency fund. We would maybe try to do both at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. So you don't have to go right back into debt.
Yes. All right. Case study number 5. We've got a couple that's giving. They're very generous. They love to give $10,000 to $15,000 per year to various charities, to their churches, but they're not itemizing on their tax return. There's no real tax benefit to what they're doing. They're just taking the standard deduction, and that's fine. But they just go, this is what it is. We love giving, but we're not really benefiting from it in any kind of significant way tax-wise. Anything that we can do to maximize our giving and to even potentially give more.
Yeah, you can bunch your gifts. So instead of giving, let's just say it's $10,000. Instead of giving $10,000 each year for 5 years, if you have the liquidity, you could give $50,000 in year 1 to a donor advised fund. And there are some caps based on AGI. So you'd have to look into the type of gift and what your AGI is. But assuming that all of it is deductible, you can deduct all of that $50,000. So in this example, they're taking the standard deduction. Standard deduction for 26 is $32,200 for a married couple. So say they hit $22,200 in itemized deductions without considering gifts. So they give $10,000 a year. So now they're right at where it makes sense to itemize. If they bunch and give an additional $40,000, all again depending on the AGI limits in your situation, potentially all $40,000 of additional is deductible versus giving $10,000 a year where none of it's providing any benefit to the deduction.
Right. And so you can take that 1 year of $50,000 deduction because you've given that all to a donor advised fund. The way we've talked about donor advised funds, but the way that they work is your gift is happening that one time.
Yeah.
But it stays in an invested account, and you then can make grants from that to your church, and you just keep doing what you were doing. You were giving X amount per week or per month to your church. You just give that out of your donor advised fund, and you can do that for 5 years because you have all the money in there, and it's growing in an investment as well, which is sweet because you'll have more money to give.
Yeah, so if it's growing, you could potentially even do more than 5 years.
Exactly. And so you won't get the tax benefit then in the 4 years that follow. because you're just going to do this in 1 year,
Right.
and then just give out of that for that 5-year period out of the donor advised fund. You don't get to get a tax break every time you grant out of your donor advised fund.
Yeah.
Then you repeat that process again after you've kind of gotten close to draining that donor advised fund after 5 years. Do it again. Do another $50,000 and do another big lump in your taxes that particular year, and then repeat that process.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to have the ability to capture the deduction for a lot more of the gifts.
So you get some tax benefits there, which enables you to be more generous, and you get the investment aspect of it that enables you to be more generous. So this strategy, again, you need to have the liquidity to do it. So we're acknowledging that there's a lot of upfront liquidity that you would need to be able to do a bunched deduction like that, or a bunched gift in your donor advised fund. But it would enable you, if you have it, to give more ultimately and even be more generous than you currently are being.
Right. And then there's even more of a benefit if you do it with appreciated assets.
Yeah. Explain that.
Yeah. So if just to continue using 50,000, say you have an ETF that you bought for $25,000, it's now worth 50,000. So you're holding $25,000 in gains. So kind of your two options are sell the ETF and give the cash. So now you've realized $25,000 in gains. You're going to have to pay tax on that, or you can. The even more of a benefit is if you have $50,000 in cash and $50,000 in an ETF, you can take that $50,000 ETF, gift it to the donor advised fund. There are rules around that as well. You want to make sure it's not short-term gains, as an example. But if you gift that to the donor advised fund, you're never realizing that $25,000 capital gain. And then you can immediately diversify that with investments without, again, realizing any gains because it's now in the donor advised fund, which is a charity. And then, again, say you have $50,000 in cash, you can put that into your investment account and repurchase the ETF, and now you've increased your cost basis.
Right. You can kind of create your own step up in basis through this little strategy. Pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, you're both avoiding capital gains and you're increasing your cost basis.
Yeah. Great. We have one more case study. Any other thoughts on the donor advised fund before we move on?
No, I think we're good.
All right.
Yeah, the last one, the Mega Backdoor Roth IRA.
What a super cool name.
Yeah.
And who wouldn't want to get involved if there's a mega backdoor Roth that you can do?
Yeah, exactly. I think people just need to understand it like you do.
I think so. So here's the situation. We've got a high earner. He makes a lot of money, and he's already maxing out his 401k, taking full advantage of whatever employer match he's getting, but he still has plenty of cash to invest. And so you could throw it in a taxable account. Mm-hmm. That'd be a perfectly fine move, but he feels like he wants to continue to max because he makes a lot of money, so he spends a good amount of that, and he wants a really healthy retirement plan.
He wants the FIRE lifestyle.
He wants that FIRE lifestyle. What's FIRE?
Financial independence, retire early.
Good.
Isn't there another one now?
Yeah, fine. Financial independence, next endeavor.
Okay.
So I think people are trying to move away from the word retirement. It's just like, I'm moving on to my next endeavor. Mm-hmm. It's just maybe not going to be making as much money. So he's got a lot of money to invest, but he feels like he's maxed out what he can contribute to his 401k. But there is, not every plan allows for this, but there is a potential option to get significantly more money into your 401k if your plan allows for it. And here's how you would do it. He's already maxing out the 401k. That's step one. The maximum amount for if you're under 50 in 2026 is $24,500. If you're over 50, that jumps up to $32,500. You get an extra $8,000.
And then if you're 60
there's
to
even
63,
super
there's
catch up.
yeah,
It's like 11,000 or something. We won't get into that because we don't want to throw too many numbers out here because there's a lot here. So you're maxing out your 401k. Let's assume, this is probably not the case, but let's assume your employer matches every penny of that. So they're also contributing $24,500 to your 401k. So that's $49,000.
Yeah.
Well, the government actually allows you to put, if you look at the contribution limits, the total contribution limit for 2026 is $72,000. And you go, how does that math work? How do I get $72,000 in there when I've maxed out at 24.5? My employer's maxed out at 24.5. My employer's not going to give any more to that. Right. How do I get that? If your plan allows you to do after-tax money into a 401k, so that is not Roth money, that is not pre-tax money, tax-deferred money. It's just after-tax dollars. You can contribute after-tax dollars to the 401k and immediately convert those to Roth.
Do you know what the difference is between after-tax and Roth?
Well, there's just no there's no tax-free benefit. So it's still money that's going to get in there after tax, but it doesn't have the Roth benefit on it. When you withdraw,
So the
you would still
get
be paying income on it.
income on the gains.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
But you would immediately convert it to Roth. So you again, let's assume 24/5, you're contributing $49,000 between you and your employer. You still have another $23,000 to throw in there after tax to get to that $72,000 IRS limit in after tax dollars that you could then immediately convert to Roth. So
does the plan need to allow for a Roth 401k?
yes.
Okay.
I believe so. It certainly needs to allow for those after tax contributions, and I think clearly it would have to be able to convert it to Roth. It would need to allow that too. I don't know if you can just keep it in after tax dollars and not convert it to Roth,
or potentially at the after you've separated, convert to Roth and pay less taxes than you did if it was traditional, because you would still pay tax on the gains, but you wouldn't have to pay tax on the conversion of what you contributed after tax.
Yeah, right. So it's really similar in theory to what a normal backdoor Roth IRA looks like, where you contribute post-tax dollars to a traditional IRA and then immediately convert it to Roth. But you're subject to a much lower limit when you're doing it that way. It's $7,500 for if you're under 50 in 2026,
or 8,600. In 20. Yeah,
I think it's another $1,100.
Yeah.
So
it was so clean for so many years, where it was like it's just $1,000. Now it's like I think it's 8,600.
Yeah, and it changes every year, so I have to always what year are we in? So yeah, you can theoretically get an extra $23,000 into a Roth portion of a 401k, which is a substantial amount of money. That's nearly the maximum limit for an individual, right?
Yeah.
Like it's up there. So it's a pretty sweet deal to be able to get some extra Roth dollars cooking. Maybe you're already doing the backdoor Roth IRA, but again, that's only $7,500. Now you've got $23,000 that you're getting into Roth.
Well, and you could potentially, if assuming the plan's allowing for it, you could potentially already be doing all of your 20. What'd you say the limit is?
72,000.
No, 20 for
24/5.
Yeah, you could potentially already be doing the 24/5 in Roth.
Yeah.
And then just doing a ton more in Roth.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's really cool.
Yeah.
If you make a lot of money, like this, again, this is really for high earners. It would be tough for somebody only making $100,000 to put this much into a 401k unless your living expenses are that low. But still, it's a pretty cool opportunity that perhaps you didn't know about.
Yeah.
The mega backdoor Roth.
Then it just makes it sound cool.
It's super cool. So ask yourself the questions like, do I need this? Do I need the liquidity of that? Would that $23,000 be better suited in a taxable account because I'm planning on buying a big thing next year? Or,
I want to pay for my kids' college.
Yeah, you might not want to do this.
Right.
It's not for everybody, but let's assume that this person knows I want this in retirement. I want more tax advantage money by the time I get to retirement. This is a great option for you.
Yeah. Retire at 40.
Yeah. There's some complexity that it brings into your plan, but it's worth doing, working, with an advisor and a CPA to make sure you're doing it the right way. But it's a pretty sweet plan that you could do.
Yeah.
All right. Those were our case studies. Some perhaps lesser known things that you didn't know about before. Hopefully we were able to potentially shed some light on this. Do you have any closing thoughts as we kind of wrap things today?
Closing thoughts. I mean, we're not, you kind of open with it. We're not trying to, first of all, just to reiterate, none of this is illegal or unethical.
Right.
We're always following the law, and we're just trying to help people maximize or make their plan most efficient for things like taxes and strategy and all of that by using some of these lesser known items that can apply to more people than or can apply to people that don't even realize it.
That's right. So it's kind of avoiding some blind spots that you might not even realize you have, making the most informed decision about your financial life, not just going with the status quo because, I'll just max that out. I'll just blah, 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 blah. Like, consider what you're doing and have a plan to attack it the right way. to be a really good steward of what God's given you.
Yeah. Yeah. And people like us that try to pay as much attention to the system as possible provide this advice. A lot of times if you hop on something like Facebook and just pose the question, you're not going to get these types of responses.
Yeah.
Because it is little known.
Yeah. And so I think that's the benefit of working with a financial advisor, is getting some additional insight into like opportunities that you would otherwise potentially miss because you just didn't know about them. And, we just want to help shine a light on any opportunity that you might have to fully maximize the stewardship of your wealth, so that you can make the best decisions possible for you and your family. Yeah,
and we only went over 6. There are lots more that could potentially are probably even lesser known that we didn't go over because it would apply to even a lesser amount of people.
Yeah, maybe we'll turn this into a series where we do more of these and continue to bring some lesser known rules to the light so that you can see if they apply to you.
Yeah.
So if there's anything that was interesting to you and you're like, that might actually apply to me, but you don't know, feel free to reach out to us. We would be happy to talk to you and look at your situation and see, that makes sense for you. Or we would be honest and say, we don't really see that for you here. That's not quite the right, it's not the right time for it, or it's just not the right move for you right now. So
what's the email?
Plan to prosper at stonecropadvisors.com.
You have access to that email?
Oh yeah, so do you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah, you'll see it. That's all we have for today. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening. We enjoy talking through this stuff.
Always. We will see you again next week. God bless.
God bless.
Investment advisory services offered through Stonecrop Wealth Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. This material is intended for informational purposes only.